Welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is February 6th, and the title of today's devotional is, Are You Ready to be Poured Out as an Offering? I am already being poured out as a drink offering. 2 Timothy 4 and verse 6. Paul was aware at the time of writing these words to Timothy that his end was drawing near. He gives certain phrases that can be considered in some ways as a personal epitaph regarding himself and his years of ministry. One of them being the pouring out of self, the emptying of self. Dr. Chambers goes on to explain that this is describing the giving up of self to God. As Paul would write to the church in Galatia, it is no longer I who lives, but Christ who lives within me. Galatians 2 and verse 20. The emptying of self so to be fully filled and lived through by God. Chambers explains that the readying to be poured out as an offering is an act of your will and not your emotions. Emotions are easily distracted and played with. They lack concreteness. Your will, though, is different. There must be the deliberate volition, the certainty of decision in offering God your will. It's not what you feel to be right, but what you know to be right, your will. Dropping down to the second paragraph, we find the strongest definition of what Chambers is here addressing. He says, you must be willing to be placed on the altar and go through the fire, willing to experience what the altar represents, which is the elimination of every desire and affection not grounded in or directed toward God. This is the being poured out as a drink offering, where self is no longer matters to self. It's the total commitment of self to God. As Christ said in Luke 22, verse 42, not my will, but thine be done. Chambers quickly says that you don't eliminate it, God does. My role in this is submission, to willingly lay myself upon the altar as an act of sacrifice in God's hands. I myself am not able to eliminate from myself my desires and affections, but God is. But do I want to do that? Ask yourself. Or do I prefer to continue to live my life under my control just as everyone else, just as all those others who refuse to fully submit their lives to God? Something from today's lesson that was of great benefit to me was how Oswald Chambers describes this transformation as being a process as opposed to instantaneous. He twice says, from the outside of your life, it may appear to be the same. The difference is taking place in your will. And then further down, he says, see to it that you don't wallow in self-pity once the fire begins. The transformation of our will to thy will be done, Matthew 6 and verse 10, is a process that begins once one commits to the full submission to God of Him being Lord over their life. Chambers closes out with what benefit there is in being poured out as an offering. First, he says, after you have gone through the fire, there will be nothing that will be able to trouble or depress you. When another crisis arises, you will realize that things cannot touch you as they used to do. And then with this closing sentence, tell God you are ready to be poured out as an offering, and God will prove Himself to be all you ever dreamed He would be. With promises such as those, what could possibly hinder us from not longing to be poured out for God? If you haven't yet read today's devotional from Dr. Chambers' book, I encourage you to do so, for it will enhance the time that we spend together. It's available free online. I invite you to share here your thoughts from today's reading, any questions that you may have, and please share prayer requests as well. And now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for His highest. God bless you. Thanks for being here today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.